active and passive voice. So let's start. What is voice? Voice is a grammatical category that applies to verbs. Voice in English expresses the relationship of the subject to the action. There are two types of voice. First, active voice. Second, passive voice. Voice क्या है? Voice एक grammatical category है जो verbs पर अप्लाई होती है. Voice इंग्लिश में subject और action के बीच के relation को define करता है. दो type के voice होते हैं. पहला, active voice. दूसरा, passive voice. Active voice means that a sentence has a subject that acts upon its one. Sentences in the active voice have a strong, direct, and clear tone. Here are some short and straightforward examples of active voice. Example: monkeys adore bananas. The cashier counted the money. The dog chased the squirrel. Active voice में subject action करता है. जैसे monkeys adore bananas. The cashier counted the money. The dog chased the squirrel. All three sentences have a basic active voice construction. Subject, verb, and object. The subject monkey performs the action described by adore. The subject, money, performs the action described by counted. The subject, dog, performs the action described by chased. The active voice is the normal voice of an English sentence. Intransitive verbs, verbs with no direct object, are always in the active voice. Transitive verbs are usually in the active voice. Normally active voice उपयोग करते हैं English sentences में. लगभग हर sentence English में active voice होता है. All tenses are possible in the active voice, as well as all sentence types. Positive, negative और question. Active voice में सारे tense और सारे type के sentences possible है जैसे positive, negative और questions. In the active voice, the subject is the person or thing responsible for the action of the verb. In written English, active voice is usually easier and more interesting for the reader. Passive voice can sound dull and bureaucratic and is typical of official writing. English में active voice usually अच्छा और आसान होता है reader के लिए. Passive voice. A sentence is in the passive voice. On the other hand, when the subject is acted on by the verb, the passive voice is always constructed with a conjugated form of to be, plus the verb's past participle. Doing this usually generates a preposition as well. That sounds much more complicated than it is. Passive voice is actually quite easy to detect. The passive voice is less common. In the passive voice, the subject receives the action of the verb. Although the passive voice is less common than the active voice, there are several good reasons to sometimes use the passive voice. Typically, in passive clauses, what is usually expressed by the object, or sometimes another argument, of the verb is now expressed by the subject, while what is usually expressed by the subject is either omitted or is indicated by some adjunct of the clause. Example: bananas are adored by monkeys. The money was counted by the cashier. The squirrel was chased by the dog. Let's take a closer look at the first pair of sentences. Monkeys adore bananas. And bananas are adored by monkeys. The active sentence consists of monkeys as subject plus adore as verb plus bananas As object. The passive sentence consists of bananas. As object. Plus. Are adored as a form of to be plus the past participle adored. Plus. By. As preposition. Plus. Monkeys as subject. Making the sentence passive flipped the structure and necessitated the preposition by. In fact, all three of the transformed sentences above required the addition of by. Passive voice dull और official writing जैसा हो सकता है. Passive voice में subject action को receive करता है. Passive voice थोड़ा सा कम common है. यहाँ हमने वही example उपयोग करा है जो active voice में उपयोग करा था. The cashier counted the cash. उसका passive the money was counted by the cashier होगा और The dog chased the squirrel का passive the squirrel was chased by the dog होगा. Uses of active and passive voices. Using the active voice conveys a strong, clear tone and the passive voice is subtler and weaker. Here is some good advice. Don't use the passive voice just because you think it sounds a bit fancier than the active voice. The active voice is the default voice in English. All intransitive verbs can only be in the active voice. And all transitive verbs usually are active voice unless we deliberately make them passive. The active voice is direct and specific. Uses fewer words, always a good thing. Dynamic. Except on occasion when the passive voice is actually useful. The active voice is the voice of choice. Active voice direct और specific होती है, कम शब्दों का उपयोग होता है और dynamic होती है. That said,